Hello everybody and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Happy Season 1 Episode 8, I Am the Future, is the name of this one. And this is the season finale. This is where we wrap it all up. And I just gonna say right up front, nailed it. Like, this was a great finale to a great show. And not only was it a great finale to a great show, but it not anticipated my problems, okay? But last week I said some things about I don't know how they're going to deal with some of the plot elements that they've set up, specifically Sunny Shine. Last week I voiced my concerns that Sunny Shine had come onto the scene as a villain a little bit too late in the game to really have a lot of weight for our big showdown finale. And the show just said, nope, going a whole other direction. Sunny Shine, not like a major player in this episode. He's in it, like, we don't forget about him, but it turns out that at the end of the previous episode, when all the kids got kidnapped, or I guess it was just Hayley. I don't know what happened to the rest of the kids, but I had assumed that, like, Sunny Shine's dudes had come to the truck somehow and taken them away, and that's not what happened. Honestly, in hindsight, that was a stupid thing to think. Okay, I get that now, because if you look at Sunny Shine, it's not like, why would he stop the truck that was already coming to him with the kids? That wouldn't have made any sense, but it just did not occur to me to think about that until later. But the opening of this episode is yet another one of these cold open weirdness things that I do love about this show, where we go back in time however many years and see some people auditioning for this show called Monkey Pants. At least I assume it's called Monkey Pants. They're singing the Monkey Pants song. It's very much a Blues Clues-esque sort of, we want a very family-friendly, happy, kid-friendly guy to be on this show and like walk the kids through what they're going to be learning. And you see two iterations of that early on. And then Sunny Shine 1.0 walks in, and he's just ready to rock it. Like, as much as Sunny Shine, despicable dude, all right? Like, into some real bad stuff. But seeing him just come in and not own the audition, okay? The guy's doing the audition obviously did not buy what he was doing, but he comes in and does his own thing. And just rocks it out. He has his own music. Like, he's wearing like a feather boa and like skin tight pants. He's clearly not what they're looking for at all, and yet not afraid to be not what they're looking for at all. And fails. And starts screaming about how he is the future, which is the title of the show. And he says it later on too. I like that we don't get the in-between there, but we do get the implication that this guy didn't just show up, right? He didn't magically get where he's at. He came from what would seem to be a pretty crappy performing lifestyle to begin with and clawed his way into some kind of success through admittedly some real powerful personality and like believing in himself stuff like he showed off in this audition. And I'm hoping we get to see more of what his whole deal is, because you start off and he's just sort of this simpering child molester, right? At least we assume. I mean, he's providing children for people who want to molest children if he's not doing it himself, and he sure doesn't care. And he's sort of one-dimensional. Introducing him like this at the beginning of the show and showing where he comes from, right? Like that this guy was a nobody and that he clawed his way to the top. I mean, it kind of mirrors Blue in a sense, because Blue is still, in a sense, trying to claw his way to the top. Like we saw last episode, he doesn't like where he's at in life. Despite the fact that he's got all this power, he's still beholden to people he doesn't want to be beholden to, and he's trying to get the levers of industry to work for him. Somehow Sunny Shine pulled on the right lever, had the right password, whatever, at some point, and got to where he was. And that is fascinating. In the meantime, Blue gets tortured by Mary. Now, I think last episode I said that I thought she'd killed him. Okay, clearly didn't see that happen on screen because he's alive in this episode, but in my brain, I think I just put together, I think he's dead because she tracked him down. But no, they're trying to get information out of him about where Meth Santa is, and he's like not interested in talking. He thinks he's got power over Mary. He thinks that he can threaten her with her mother's life, and she's, of course, that lever is not available to be pulled anymore because she did see her mom die. So him threatening her with "you're gonna watch her die" is kind of a moot point. They don't get the information that they want, at least entirely, out of him. But then Happy shows up. And a lot of y'all have talked about in the comments, or maybe it's only a few of you, but some of y'all have talked in the comments recently about how Happy is very much taking on the characteristics of Nick, that he's becoming more Nick's imaginary friend than Hayley's. And we see that for real play out by the end of the episode, but here, his idea, he sees the sock puppet imaginary friend, he puts it together with the imaginary friend he saw at Imaginary Friends Anonymous, and he says, "I know where this guy is." He swears, which I thought was like episode 1 Happy had the swear jar, possibly episode 2, I forget. And now Happy himself is like, "I'm cool with this. We're gonna," like, he's down with the swearing, he's down with the torture, even if it is tickling, all right? He's still, like, very much turned into Tiny Nick instead of Tiny Hayley, and tickles this imaginary friend who's a sock into giving up the truth of Meth Santa's origins. And Meth Santa's childhood was messed up. Yeah, I keep calling him Meth Santa. I don't know if he's on meth, all right? That's sort of the moniker that I've formed for him in my mind, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. He's definitely had a history with drugs that he may not have wanted to take, and you've got this, we're seeing sort of this cycle of abuse and cycle of bad fathering play out in a variety of different ways. This kid could have turned out relatively normal if it wasn't for his terrible dad and the terrible life that he had after his terrible dad died. But, like, things way beyond his control just ripped away every zone of innocence he could have possibly had and left him as this sort of guy who's searching for some kind of remnants of childhood in his own broken, crazy way. And I mentioned this, I think, way back in episode 2 or 3 when we first heard about how, like, this guy wants kids to stay kids forever. That I like that motivation. I like it even more now that I know more about him and his early days and what leads him to this. Because we've seen him go on this sort of villainous journey, and we're gonna see him get killed at the end of this episode and get his quote-unquote just desserts. I thought it was really nice to inject this extra level of empathy here at the end and say, this guy didn't just come out as a monster. Okay, he wasn't just born evil. He was made evil by things way beyond his control. And I liked that aspect of this a lot. I thought that humanizing this initially utterly inhuman character was a really smart storytelling move. And to top it all off, the fact that his imaginary friend leaves him because he can't handle it. The fact that he's like, he just expects to be let go at a certain point. Like, the imaginary friend essentially wants to die, right? Like, he knows once Meth Santa stops believing in him that everything, like, it's over for him, or he'll move on to a different kid or whatever happens, but he won't have to deal with Meth Santa. So he's spent, like, a lot of his time, he's dealt with the fact that this guy's gone through all this crap. He's tried to be there for him, and it's not working, and this thing's just getting more and more broken, and he can't. Clearly, the imaginary friend has some kind of conscience, and he just had to bail because he couldn't, like, he was just stuck not being able to help this guy, not being able to get away, never ever being able to die, just watching this person, like, live out the horrible things that, you know, had been done to him, and then eventually doing those horrible things to other people. I think that character has a lot of sympathy as well, and I'm glad that they didn't, like, kill him or something in the tickle scene. But moving on, we find Mary looking for Amanda, and she has an interesting scene with Sunnyshine. This is, I think, the last scene that we see Sunnyshine in the show, where she busts in, she's like, I'm a cop, and Sunny knows that he's got enough leeway not to get, like, for nothing's gonna stick to him legally, because he's high enough up the chain. He's supplying, here's what I assume that he's supplying some very powerful people with some very illicit gifts, like those children that they were shipping out. And he's probably got his own problems already with those people now that those gifts have gone missing. All right. But he still feels pretty invincible compared to one cop. And yet I really liked how Mary turned this on him and said, listen, you're right. You're probably going to not get charged. All right. If I take you in, probably no charges will be pressed. Like you wouldn't go to court. If you did go to court, they wouldn't find you guilty of anything. You certainly have your alibis, but I can still arrest you in front of all of your child fans, and that will be bad for your image. Is that what you want? And maybe he could have done something more, but what she's asking for is just to find Amanda, and he's like, I'm willing to give here. So he gives her Amanda's, location, and Amanda and Mary meet up, and they're like, essentially Mary rescues Amanda, which I like that touch that Mary was there for Amanda again. I like this relationship between these two that has grown into something really, really combative, into something I think that is very much like a friendship. In the meantime, Meth Santa has Hayley, and his plan is to make her a child forever. And he's done this to some other people, which is pretty horrifying, because the way he's planning to do this is to lobotomize her with the drill. I said already, like, I like his motivation, but this is still pretty horrifying. And of course, Nick is on the trail, right? He has kind of an idea where they're going, and there's a great quip about, like, I believe a lot of stuff. I am talking to a blue flying pegacorn, but you're telling me there's like a secret underground lair for this toy factory? I don't think so. But, Meth Santa taking Hayley into his lair, and I loved how we saw through his eyes what kind of a place this was. The Toyland, the song, and the literal lit up trees. He's created in his mind a world that matches what he wishes was real, where he can be safe, where he is Santa, where he is, he has kids to play with still that are still innocent and good, and he saved them from this horrible fate that he experienced. And how all of this stuff makes sense in his head, and then switch back to Hayley just standing in a dark corridor with lobotomized people lumbering towards her, and cutting between those two perspectives was amazing. And he goes to lobotomize her, and Nick is on the way, right? Nick is about to bust in, and then Nick gets stuck. And this was probably my one gripe with the episode, is that Nick steps in a bear trap, and the bear trap does not, like, completely ruin his day. Because a bear trap that size should break your leg and mangle your flesh, like, into pieces. Like, those things are no joke. And Nick is still able to walk afterwards, but it does at least incapacitate him for a while. And Hayley gets away on her own, which I thought was a cool choice, that they didn't make it necessarily... There's still a rescue element, but they gave her, like, some agency, and she smashes Meth Santa on the head with a snow globe, runs away. Happy busts in and starts taking on Meth Santa on his own. He's, again, got that Nick gene in him now, where he, like, really wants to fight some stuff and save Hayley, and eventually gets put in a jar. Nick busts free from his bear trap finally. Happy busts free from the jar finally. They're both chasing Meth Santa up to the roof. Meth Santa's chasing Hayley up there. The cops are coming. It's all coming down to it. It's all funneling down into this one final moment. And Meth Santa chases Hayley around, and eventually Happy makes it up there, dukes it out with Meth Santa. There's the great line where Meth Santa says, only magic can kill me. And he says, you're not magic, you can't even fly. And then Happy pops up and he's like, but guess who can? And just wrecks his shop. And them together take down this guy. And you think, like, this is going to be an arm pump, like, just rah-rah moment. But then he falls through the window, gets tangled up in the wire, and you see him hung from the ceiling of the toy store in exactly the same place that his dad had died, in exactly the same setup and way. I mean, his dad probably hadn't been shot, and we got that beautiful, like, shot in the head and, like, weird bubbles of Christmas ornaments coming out. That was all cool. But to see this guy essentially stuck in the path that his father created for him because of how terrible he was a real, like, I think a thematic moment in this episode, and sort of took away from the, yeah, he's dead, into the, oh crap, this guy just never had a chance to do anything else. And it's interesting because I think we're going to see a mirror of that with Nick and Hayley. Although Nick is trying to improve what kind of dad he is, he is going to rub off on Hayley. Like, he's still going to shape what kind of person she becomes, and has shaped what kind of person she is up until now, I think, by his absence. Maybe not for the best. He's definitely shaped Happy, which is, in a way, our Hayley surrogate throughout here. I hope we get a season 2 so we can find out what goes on with Hayley and Nick and how their relationship develops. But I thought that this was a really fitting end for Meth Santa. Nick makes it out, carrying Hayley, rescues her, sort of talks to, not Meredith, to Amanda, and says, maybe I'll, do some visits or whatever, weekends or whatever. And then just falls down on the ground and has a heart attack. He'd had a heart attack already on the roof, but he's still, like, kind of dealing with that, and Hayley had given him his pills. And he's not going to die, but it was a great kind of a fake out to have him, on the ground, fade to black. I think commercial break, but we might have smash cut to just them in the graveyard with Mary looking at gravestones. But it's not his grave, okay? It's her mom's grave or somebody she knows, possibly her dad's, because I think she's already been there looking at her dad's grave. And Nick comes up, and he's mostly okay. He had died for a while. Apparently, she says word on the street is that the password is gone. So either, I couldn't tell if what she was saying was everybody thinks Nick is dead, so nobody's going to be coming for the password, or if they were saying they think that when he was dead for 8 minutes and then got brought back, like the blood flow erased the password from his mind, he doesn't have it anymore. Regardless, Nick is not in that immediate danger at this point. Like, no, people aren't coming after him for this forbidden information, and he's going to be trying to live a normal life. And I like this interaction between him and Mary, because in the end, like, these two women that Nick loves, I think, or has loved in the past, even though the way these relationships played out ended up really wrecking his life, I think that there's something in both of these women that is really good for him in a certain way. And the fact that he works so well with Mary and that she understands him and that they're good for each other is a nice sort of bow on and how that their relationship has progressed. And the fact that him and Amanda, like, he admits to Amanda that she was right about, bringing kids into the world, and he's finally willing to have a better outlook about that. Like, these are both of these women that he has been involved with, even though he is the reason they're at each other's throat. They're both really incredible people. And I liked the way they evolved, sort of over the show, and the way they had relationships with each other and got to understand each other better, and eventually repaired their relationship with Nick. For a show this in your face, to be so positive about people being able to change and people being good for each other, ultimately, I think that is really, it's beautiful to me. And the almost the final scene of the show, Hayley and Happy are sort of having a heart-to-heart, And Hayley's telling Happy, thank you for saving me and all this stuff. But Happy's fading away for Hayley. And it's understandable because, like, Hayley kind of has had to grow up. The thing that Meth Santa says he's trying to save her from has really been the thing that has pushed her over the edge into adult. She had to be an adult to escape. She had to stick up for herself. She didn't have Happy there to help her out. She had to be her own person, and so Happy is fading away for Hayley because she doesn't need him anymore. And this was the scene that, like, you had the fake out Nick dying scene that you could have got weepy-eyed about if you wanted to, and like gone on Twitter, be like, no, Nick can't die. If it was at the commercial break, I forget exactly how they placed it, but you know how they do in TV shows, and everybody reacts, and Nick better not die. But this was the real one for me. Like, yeah, Nick didn't end up dying, and I didn't expect him to. But when Hayley stops being able to see Happy, like, that was the moment that really hit me in the feels and made me just hit me in the emotional center to think about this kid losing her innocence to a degree, not necessarily in the worst. Okay, the way she loses her innocence is pretty rotten, being kidnapped and hauled around and having to fight Santa Claus, and the great line about kids have to figure out eventually there's no Santa Claus. Nick has all that stuff. That was pretty bad, but I don't think she's gonna turn out like a monster because of this. It's just that she had to mature to get through this, and now she doesn't need Happy anymore. But Nick does. And I love the fact that he's here trying to do the right thing, trying to be a dad, that he's terrified of it. He's always terrified of these things that he needs to do, these relationships that he needs to keep in check. When he went back to talk to Amanda, he had to psych himself up. He couldn't deal with it. And now that he's going to have a hangout sesh with Hayley, he's like, what do I do? How do I keep from screwing her up? And that's the right instinct, Nick. As a parent myself, I got to say, I think a lot about, boy, I hope I'm not screwing these kids up real bad. Like, I'm not the best at this. I don't half the time I don't know what I'm doing, and the other half of the time I just really sometimes want to be on my own and work on things, and they're bothering me, but I do enjoy spending time with them sometimes. Anyway, it's complicated being a parent, and I empathize with you, Nick. It is the scariest thing that you could do because you're good at beating people up, and you apparently have bones made of adamantium that don't get broken by bear traps. There is, of course, a post-credits scene, and sets up some beautiful stuff because we have Mickey, right? Mickey's been wandering around. Maybe you wondered throughout this episode, when is that subplot going to come in? He comes in. Blue's in prison now. He goes and he wants what is his. And Mickey gives it to him after a fashion because the demon thing-ish that's been inside Mickey this whole time passes out of him into Blue. And now Blue is the demon thing. And we smash to black, end of season. Great. I love how they've done this. Okay, I really, really, really think that the way that they have resolved a large part of the storyline, and yet introduced big possibilities for the next season without undoing the goodness that we have got in the original storyline. I hate when, for instance, a horror movie, a lot of horror movies like to say, let the good guys fight it out and finally break free, and at the very final second, the monster pops up and slashes them in the back for no reason. Just so we can have a downer ending, just so we can rip that away from people and make them feel bad. I'm not saying it's bad every time it happens, but it's used so often and with so little thought to why that it really rubs me the wrong way. And I think there's a lot of horror movies that would have been better if you just let the good guys win. If you could imply that there's still a little something out there, but not just trash them at the end just because it's the end of a horror movie. And this walks that balance so well, where there's still huge implications for what can still go on in this world. All right, Sunny Shine still out there, still doing his thing. still untouchable, still higher than Blue. All right, Blue still alive, now demon possessed, whatever that means, and happy now with Nick, which is a good ending thing, but also a good like, okay, where does this relationship go from here? Does Happy become more and more and more like Nick, or does he kind of get to stay happy a little bit? Where does that go? Who influences who the more? Will Hayley ever be able to see him again? What is this world that we're living in this universe where like fortune cookies are real and imaginary friends are real and demons and all this stuff? All these questions are unanswered, but it doesn't feel like we haven't finished the story of the first season. It's a great balancing act and a great finale to a great show. I dearly hope it gets a second season. I have no idea what the financials are on this, or like the viewing numbers, or how much is they're bringing. Not the first clue. I have not looked at one single like how many people turned in to watch Happy stat since I've started doing this. So I don't know if it's viable for Syfy to do a season 2. But if they do, there's plenty of stuff there to do. And if they don't, we've had a great season that's wrapped up in a beautiful way. And I'm happy to have been able to be along for the ride. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Sorry it's going up a little bit late in the day. I was sick. I had a migraine that made me want to just not do anything last night. So I got watching Happy late. I had some job stuff to do. But here, I'm trying to get this out. And I hope that you guys are excited about the show as I am. I don't know if there's like a hashtag renew happy thing that you can tweet at Syfy. But tweet at Syfy hashtag renew happy. Because I want more of this. I want a lot more. You guys are awesome. As always, let me know what you thought in the comments. If I forgot something or I got something wrong, and I have gotten plenty of things wrong, you guys. I do not claim infallibility, and I'm sorry. But I appreciate you putting up with me. And I will not see you guys next week with more Happy. Because it's over for now. But thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves. And have a great year.